Hi everyone and welcome to Toop TV. Well, it's definitely feeling like winter in Adelaide, so find a spot in front of the fire and stay tuned to watch today's show. We'll be taking a look at one of SA's finest in North Adelaide, where the views are second to none. Also coming up, our Suburb Insider segment on Goodwood. If you're buying or selling in the area, you don't want to miss that. And of course, we're live and interactive, so don't forget to email in your questions and we'll be able to answer them at the end of the show. Well, what a crazy time in the marketplace right now. It's really hard to judge. But coming up, we've got an expert from the REISA to help us out to make sense of that. Also, if you're thinking of moving, we've got some tips to help you do that. Now, let's go to the inside story. It's the Hutt Street Centre's blanket on the move, and it's an appeal that's put together by our very own Toop.
As the winter nights get colder and temperatures drop to as low as 3 degrees, spare a thought for those who are sleeping on the street. To help out the homeless who are battling these conditions, Toop&Toop's Toop conceived the Blankets on the Move Winter Initiative.
Well, we're trying to raise awareness for the homeless people in Adelaide, and one small part I thought I could do is where we're dealing with people who are moving, try and get the message out that when you're packing to shift, why not look at those blankets and rugs and coats that you don't need anymore and put them at a good cause.
A Blankets on the Move Winter Drinks evening was held last Thursday, and many linked to the real estate industry showed up in force to support this worthy cause.
I think this is a tremendous initiative. Most of us take our homes completely for granted, but in fact there's almost 5,000 people in Adelaide who don't have a home. So this is a great initiative to look after them.
I think it's fantastic for the community to really support people that don't have, these things. And we came along, we are in the industry as well, and we sent out brochures to all of our clients, and we've come here with quite a few blankets tonight as well. So it's a great achievement for Lou to organise this.
This outdoor event is also a great way for people to experience what it's like to be homeless on a cold winter's night.
Hutt Street provides breakfast and lunch, but when we close in the afternoon, the guys then access a service called Fred's Van, and Fred's Van traditionally gives soup and a sandwich, and they literally stand on the street and drink the soup, eat the sandwich, and that's their last sustenance for the night. And it's a pretty miserable way to eat your dinner at night, standing out on the cold street, rain coming down, huddled in a doorway.
Through this initiative, Lou and his team have managed to collect around $700 and over 120 blankets. They hope to increase this amount by the end of winter.
Well, ongoing with all of our offices, I'm hoping that if people want to drop stuff off, by all means do.
Well, what a fabulous initiative from Toop and his team. If any of you still want to drop blankets off, please don't hesitate at any of our offices, and we'll certainly make sure that they get to the homeless shelter. Now, joining me today, I have REISA's General Manager of Training and Communications, Emma Slate. Welcome, Emma.
Thanks, Mandy.
It's great to have you here again, especially in this time when we're going through this crazy time in the marketplace, and we're all trying to make sense of that from our point of view as real estate agents to the consumer. So we're really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. So in your opinion, what's going on out in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors that I really want to touch on which I think are important for both industry and consumers to be aware of. First is there's definitely a high amount of stock on the market. I don't think that's any secret, and it's important that we understand that. So at the moment, stock levels are looking a lot higher than they were 12 months ago and even 2-3 years ago. So we're seeing properties sit on the market for a little longer, and there's definitely quite a few for buyers to choose from. Another important thing that we're really noticing is that first home buyers have really dried up since the state government grants have been pulled back, and they are going to be pulled back further following the state government announcement last week in budget that it will no longer apply for new houses over the next 2 years. So what we're seeing is those buyers moved into the market probably 12, 18 months ago, and they've been fairly static over the last sort of 6 to 12 months particularly. So we're seeing that end of the market really feel pressure. And the other thing that I think all agents are particularly finding is that finance is hard to come by. The lenders are really tightened up their criteria and really looking hard at when they're lending. So those three things really are causing quite a tight market.
Mm-hmm. I guess one of the things that is prominent in our mind, there was an article in the paper about auction clearance rates and how that's affecting the current marketplace. Are they true facts?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that article, Mandy, because when I saw it, my heart sank. That isn't the official auction clearance rate at all. The REI spends a lot of time and resources in building auction clearance rates, and we all know that agents are busy after an auction. They're going to the next inspection, they're negotiating with purchasers to try and get that deal over the line. Don't always answer their phone, so we have a mechanism where we follow those agents up on the day following the weekend. So when we released our official auction clearance rate yesterday, it was 42%. It wasn't the 15% that had been derived through media calling agents. So that's quite a big difference, 42% compared to 15.
15, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's still saying, I think, to the marketplace is auctions are still a good way to go.
Absolutely. If you do believe there's going to be good demand, it can be a way of accelerating the buying decision for both purchaser and vendor, so it can really bring those parties closer together. We do need to remember that auction is a fairly small part of the market as well. So when we're seeing it as an indicator of market activity, it simply is that indicator. It's really only a couple of % of what's going on in the market, but it does give us a good feeling of what buyers are feeling. So even if that auction rate's around 50%, it still means that people are selling in a very short time frame. And that's important when you're seeing property sit on the market for a little longer.
I think at the moment, there's close to 7,000 property on the market, which is just over 2,000 more than this time last year. Where do you think this is coming from, Emma? That's quite a lot of stock at this time of the year.
Yeah, it is a lot of stock, and I suppose we're seeing a combination of people putting their properties on and the properties that have been there for perhaps more than 90 days sit there a little longer as well. And that's not an environment we've seen in Adelaide in the last few years. Country agents would be a little bit more familiar with the longer time frame, but definitely not in metropolitan Adelaide. So once again, those first home buyers sort of slowing up, and the availability of finance are big factors in a purchasing decision. They're pretty big tools that purchasers need at their disposal.
So how does that then compare with the rest of the nation? Are we just coming in line with the rest of the nation, or are we out of sync with the rest of the nation?
Yeah, great time to ask that question, because before I came over, the REIA, our national body, released a market facts report on the state of the market nationally. And when we look nationally, South Australia is not actually doing that poorly. Our cousins in Queensland, of course, are really feeling it, and that's some external factors with the floods as well. So, but that does have a flow-on effect nationally. A lot of companies are national these days and have offices there, so it's a little bit of flow-on there. In relation to prices, South Australia is actually holding pretty well, and that's comparing sales settlement results quarter on quarter, year on year. We're not talking about what people are listing their property for and potentially selling. We're actually talking about the settlement data. And I think that's a really important factor, particularly for purchasers to know that when we look at long-term trends, and we're talking about going way back into the times of recession, in South Australia, State Bank collapse, our property prices did not go down by very much at all. If they did, it was like 1-2% and quickly moved back up. So long-term and short-term trends all point to property being that really stable investment, and it's important for people to have confidence in that.
Last night on one of the current affairs shows on one of the channels, they had an expert talking about Australia still being 60 to 50% overpriced in property, and have been for quite some time. Do you see that? Do you see Australia as being overpriced in all areas of property?
No, we don't, and our Real Estate Institute of Australia has done quite a lot of research on that, and there's a lot of different factors that play out in other economies that aren't so prevalent in Australia. And it's funny, but as soon as the market slows down, these people always come out about the housing bubble, and they just keep recycling
If it was a
the
boom
argument.
period, we wouldn't hear about them, would
you know,
we?
yeah, and I mean, their predictions have never come true here, and we see when we look at loan ratios, when we look at spending patterns, we don't have the factors that those international markets who have experienced major downturns have, so we don't believe there's a bubble, no.
Emma, thank you for joining me today. Please stay with us because we've got some more later on in the show.
Sure.
But now let's go behind the blinds.